What's happening, everybody? It's your boy Keezy. It ain't easy being Keezy, and in today's video we're going to talk about the starter kit for the early 2000s to like mid 2000s streetwear slash urban time period. All the items that make up this starter kit. I'm gonna try my best. Let's get it. Alright, so the early 2000s starter kit is pretty simple. In fact, it's really simple. And the kit actually looks a little bit something like this. This kit right here explains pretty much everything about that time period. I'm gonna go through item per item because there's so much to say, and it's depending on what neighborhood you grew up in, what state you grew up in, it could be a little bit different, but for a majority of people it could be like kind of similar, kind of relatable. So we're gonna start it off with hats, all right? You know, the early 2000s, when I grew up anyway, the new era caps really just kind of popped off. Pretty much any rapper that you could think of during the era that was popular was wearing new era fitteds. No one was really wearing snapbacks. Actually nobody was wearing snapbacks. Snapbacks wasn't really hot. I'm sure in the 90s snapbacks were still really hot, but then by the time the fitteds came in, it was just a thing to have your fitteds, and you had to keep the stickers on the fitteds. Alright, so if you want to be a part of this kit, go get you a fitted hat and leave the stickers on that shit. And if you really want to get the look down, get you some pinwheel hats that look like this. And sometimes the pinwheel hat will be like two colors, so then on the left and on the right side it will have like one color will be like white and then the front will be black, right? But eventually New Era and many other brands started making a lot of pinwheel hats that were just like multicolor that kind of look like this. And they were like tricolor or like 4 or 5 colors sometimes, and it was like for real pinwheel around the whole hat. It was just the more colorful the better. And for myself, I grew up in Northern California from the Bay, and in the 2000s, the early 2000s, everybody just wanted like really colorful stuff. It was a time where guys were just wearing more colors because it was more flashy, because it looked more fly, I guess. So some of these hats started to like elevate and do things that was kind of like a more rip-off of like BBC at the time, because BBC ended up coming out with these hoodies with the diamonds and the dollar signs. So I think these like urban brands or these non-branded streetwear brands from back in the day that were sold in like the local hood stores would sell hats with like money signs on them, or just like dollar bills and stuff like that, and just random logos all over the hat. And not only would it not be an actual baseball logo like a Frisco, New York, whatever, it would end up being a dollar sign. It's because you didn't have money, but you had enough money to spend on clothes that have dollar signs on them. Straight up, that was hot back then. And speaking of hats, your hat also had to be like really oversized. It would be so oversized that people would like tuck their ears in. I used to do that a lot when I was growing up. I would like tuck my ears in behind it because like the hat was just so big, and everything, your t-shirt, your pants, your hat, everything just had to be bigger. So like if I was a size 7 1/8, I was buying 7 3/8, 7 1/2 for a fitted, which is not my size at all. In fact, that probably shrunk my head. I mean, visually speaking, it probably just didn't really look that great. Alright, so when we talk about early 2000s, how can you talk about the early 2000s starter kit without talking about tall tees? Holy crap. But in the early 2000s, it was just the taller the better. I kid you not, like Foot Locker, Champs, you know, the Chics and the Shoe Palaces, or if Shoe Palace was around back then, they sold t-shirts that were just hella long. I'm talking about t-shirts that go down to your knees. And I don't know what it was, you know, and why I wore tall tees back then, but it felt right. And it was hard for me not to wear tall tees afterwards. But anyways, if you want to be a part of this kit, you gotta rock the tall tee. But you gotta rock the tall tee also with the stickers on it, because the hats also still had the stickers. So you gotta match. You know what I mean? You gotta match top and bottom.
Same colors, the straps on my bows. Tall tee with the sticker and tag hanging. Pockets all swole, man, I'm doing my thing.
You gotta have the tall tee stickers with the New Era stickers. You know what I'm saying? Fresh. Basically for this kit, you gotta demonstrate to people that you just bought this. Like you just bought it 3 hours ago, even though you bought it like 4 months ago. Just like I said, there might be some differences from like neighborhood to neighborhood or state to state, depending on what kind of shirts you wore. Screen printed t-shirts wasn't as hot. Screen printed t-shirts in the early 2000s, to me anyway, kind of seemed a little bit more of a luxury. And a lot of people back then were wearing, if it wasn't blank t-shirts, if you weren't layering your blank t-shirts, like a blank white tee with a blank black tee over it, or like a green or red t-shirt, if you didn't do that, you would probably have like some kind of like spray painted t-shirt. There was so many kids in my high school that had spray painted tees. It was a huge tall tee with like this mural on their back. Like it almost looked like a curtain. It looked like a airbrushed curtain. That's what it looked like. So anyways, moving away from t-shirts, when we talk about jackets, early 2000s starter kit for the jackets would be something like Jeff Hamilton jackets. If you had money, you would buy the Jeff Hamilton jacket. If people don't know what that is, Jeff Hamilton jackets are really famous for putting all those patches of basketball teams on there. Literally every single NBA basketball team on there. I don't know if they did football or not. And to my knowledge, FBCC from Oakland was, or he's not from Oakland, he's from Brooklyn, or he's from somewhere in New York. I think he was the first one to bring that to the table when it came to like the jackets and the pants. He sewed on a whole bunch of patches onto a jacket and it just went crazy.
Have the patches for, I would buy the pennants and cut the logo out, and I was stitching it on my jean suits, right? And I never knew back then that I could have trademarked and copyright that idea.
At that point, by 2004, 2005, you would see jeans and hoodies and starter jackets, Letterman type jackets with just hella patches. I'm talking about patches on patches on patches, or just embroidery of all the different teams all over them. And not only was it jackets and pants, they also did hats too. There were like new era caps that was really popular that had all the teams, all the NBA teams all over it, and it was pinwheel at the same time. So like that is, holy shit, that's like the cherry on top. But to go with this kit, if you weren't into the like crazy Letterman jacket, if you weren't into the huge black hoodies, you probably had an LRG jacket. I think you called them track jackets. Holy shit, were track jackets popular as shit back then, especially the LRG ones that look like this. All right, these LRG jackets were just so popular. They came in more colors than you can imagine. You can get them at Macy's, you can get them at the local hood store, you can get them on Market Street back in the day. They had them all over the place, and they were reasonably priced. And this was also during an era where you could actually go into the store and bargain for stuff. Like I kid you not, they had like LRG, Academic, State Property, you know what I'm saying? They had a whole bunch of stuff, starter jackets, all this stuff with like the SF teams on it and whatever. And they'll be like, oh, this is 150. You'd be like, nah, I only got 90 right now. And they'd be like, oh, okay, well, what about 100? I'd be like, okay, I could work with 100 with that for sure. Let me get the black one. let me get the black one. If you try to bargain today, people will definitely look at you hella funny if you try to bargain with someone today. That's just a no-go. But back then you could bargain though. Even for some of the Air Forces, they might have been fake back then, but you could still bargain though. That was the plus. Okay, so moving on. I mean, there's more to talk about when it comes to tops and jackets and shirts and stuff, but let's move on to the denim. So the denim for the early 2000s, this was on the cusp of Japanese raw denim being like introduced on a mass scale. And so we were dealing with more brands like the Girbuads, the LRGs, the Academics, you had FUBU, and you had Ed Hardy. All of these, I could almost make a separate video on all of those brand names that I just mentioned. But man, Girbuads was going crazy. Girbuads was, I mean, everything was baggy. So the Girbuads, I mean, they titled the Girbuads shuttle jeans. Literally, they were called shuttle pants. You can look it up. Go on Google right now. Type in Girbuads shuttle pants. There'll be a whole list of all these huge ass pants. I'm talking about like, it would damn near be 2.5 feet wide of denim on your leg. It's crazy. Now in this starter kit, if you got far enough into some of these brand names that I just mentioned, like the Ed Hardys and the Girbuads and the LRGs, eventually you would have got introduced to like the Red Monkeys and the Evisus, which was pretty much, you know, held to a pedestal of these pants being considered like the Ferrari of denim. These were and still are the shit. Straight up, the way they were packaged, the way it was manufactured, the fabric, all that kind of stuff. Not gonna get too crazy into it. You guys hear me talking about it all the time on this channel. Alright, so when it comes to the feet for the 2000s, I mean, by the time Nelly came out with the song Air Force One, or Stomping in My Air Force Ones, I mean, globally Air Force One became a go-to shoe. I don't know about everywhere else, but in the Bay, it was a big thing to have custom Air Force Ones. And it wouldn't be just any customs. It was like specifically mixing designer onto Air Force One. And I've recently kind of seen it like surface back on Instagram where people are taking LV, like real LV leather, or maybe it's fake, who knows, and then they, you know, cut it out and then put it onto the Air Force One, onto the swoosh, onto the toe box and stuff. Still, I mean, granted, it still looks good. It definitely brings me back to those times, but that was a major part of the kit. Like if you had that, like you were going places. Like it really looked, at that point, it really looked like you actually were making money when really you bought that at a hood store. Okay, anyways, before I bore you with the sneakers and all that kind of stuff, there was more to this kit, all right? The part that topped off the whole kit was the fake jewelry. The fake jewelry and the other little knickknacks that go with it. But the fake jewelry, for when I grew up, everybody wanted a gold grill. I wish I had a gold grill when I was younger. But the only gold grill that I can afford, because I couldn't pay for the real ones, because paying $350 to $450 for a gold grill back then, it just seems like you're rich, right? If you didn't go that route and get the gold grill, the fake gold grill, you ended up getting like a fake watch because all the malls ended up selling hella fake jewelry. This freaking watch right here was so popular. I don't know who wore it first. I think it was like Lil Wayne, maybe Kanye. I don't know who wore it, but in the early 2000s, this watch was everywhere, whether it was fake, whether it was real, but it always had like fake rhinestones on it and fake diamonds. It would be like super colorful, and it always had like that map on the dial of the actual watch, and it would just be bust down, the whole thing all around, bust down diamond. You couldn't even see the watch. It was just, you all saw diamonds throughout the whole thing, right? And who knows if the watches actually worked back then too. I don't know, maybe they did, I have no idea. And the end-all be-all for this whole starter kit for the early 2000s streetwear, urban wear, whatever you want to call it, kit would be your cell phone. Yeah, that's right, the cell phone. All right, this is during a time iPhones, like a full-on iPhone that you can is like touch and all this, and you could play HD video, 4K. No, we didn't have that. We did not have that back then. What we had back then was metros. God damn, did I go through a lot of metros. I had hella metros. Shout out to Izzy. I don't know Izzy watching this right now, but I had a lot of metros, and it was about the SIM card. It was like, hey man, I could trade you phones right now. I could take the SIM card out of that one. You know what I mean? Now I got a flip phone, right? It was like you can upgrade sitting at the lunch table in high school. It was like, oh, you don't want that phone no more? Oh, let me get that. Let me put my little SIM card in there. Boom, now you got a new phone. It was that quick. Like I don't even think they use SIM cards anymore. They use, I think that each phone is chipped now. I have no idea how it works. I haven't bought a new phone in a long time. Alright, that pretty much wraps it up for this video. I'm tired of talking about the early 2000s. Comment down below, were you a part of this era? Were you not a part of this era? Are you more intrigued about it because you weren't a part of the era? Whatever it is, let it be known in the comment section. Alright, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys and girls keep it locked from clothing, music to culture. It is your boy Keezy, and I'm out. Peace.
You want to do, and it's just gonna take a minute, but it's gonna work out. Like if you try to cut corners and you put costumes on to do shit, yeah, you gonna get straight, but at what cost? You know what I'm saying? And how you feel when you do this shit for you, 100% for you. You could grind and stay up for 5 or 6 days and not really be tired because it's for you.